Hey, what's up, guys? This is Marseille, aka the Property Pastor, coming at you with another amazing real estate video to help you on your journey, to help you build your business. And today we're going to be talking a little bit about the 5 things that I have seen in my investing career that cause people to fail as first time, second time, maybe even third time investors. So I've worked with a few folks. You guys may be aware that I had the privilege and honor to be on the Bigger Pockets Real Estate Rookie podcast a few months ago. And since then, I've gotten a lot of calls from different folks just saying, hey, can you mentor me? Can you, just help guide me through this process? And between them and then folks I've worked with in my local market, I've seen a few things that I believe have caused people to kind of struggle in their journey. But hey, look, before we dig into to these five topics, I want to make sure that you like and subscribe to our channel. So take a few minutes and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that share button, because there's folks out here who need this valuable information to help them on their journey. And we want to make sure you're getting access to all the great content that we're putting out every single week. So let's go ahead and jump into these 5 subjects. The very first one I want to go over is having a lack of clarity. Having a lack of clarity. And clarity is important as a real estate investor because that helps you to focus on what you're going to do and what you're not going to do. A couple of things that you really want to ask yourself, and people kind of struggle when they come and say, hey, help me, because I don't know where to start. One of the things that people are struggling is what do I want to invest in? Right. And that could be, what kind of vehicle am I going to use? Am I going to be a wholesaler? Am I going to do fix and flips? Am I going to be buy and hold? Am I going to be a private money lender? Or it could be, do I want to do single family homes? Do I want to do, small multifamily? Do I want to do large multifamily? So kind of having, being unsure about what you want to invest in and then what kind of vehicle you want to use, that tends to cause people to struggle. Other thing in terms of clarity is that folks don't often know, that I would highly recommend you determine, is what is my financial independence number, or my FI number. And that number is basically the amount of money you need on a monthly basis, annual basis, however you want to look at it, to replace your W-2 income. And some folks talk about how do you Robert Kiyosaki talks about getting out of the rat race. Basically all of your passive income exceeds your earned income, and at that point you can tell your job, hey, I don't need to come back. But a lot of times people look at it like, hey, well, I'm just going to buy this one house, I'm now a real estate investor, success, right? But not having understanding of what your financial number is, that could be kind of problematic. And the reason I say that is because your financial independence number helps you to determine some of your goals, right? It helps you to determine, how much cash flow do I need on a house? So if your particular market, is generating $300 on a house, $500 or whatever, and you need $10,000 a month, right? You just figure out how many houses do I need at that cash flow number to achieve financial independence. Some folks are like, hey, as soon as I buy this first house, right, I got my first rent check, I'm going down to the bank, and I'm a guru now, right? That's really not how that works, right? So not having clarity on the financial independence number and not having, clarity there can be kind of problematic. Other thing is like, what are my goals and my timeline, right? So if you don't have clarity on what your goals are, right, and you don't have a clear timeline on when you want to get there, that can be very frustrating because, real estate investing is not an overnight thing. Now, I know if you watch the late night infomercial, the guy tells you, hey, come to my free seminar, and then he brings you to the back and you thought you were paying, $100 and now you're paying, $25,000. They'll tell you that you can get there overnight. But realistically, that's typically not the case. So the thing about not being clear on your goals and your timeline, if you don't have a target, right, you'll hit it every single time. So it's important that you know your goals. It's important that you know how many houses you want to buy, how long that you want to take you, how much money you need to save up, do you need to get very creative, all those kind of things in terms of creative financing and seller financing and whatnot, right? Knowing your goals and your timeline are very important. When I first started out, I was like, hey, in 2 years, man, I'm going to be at my FI number, and just talking to mentors and things like that, folks are like, hey, it might take you a little bit longer than that, or you got to really grind. Not to say that it's impossible, but you got to really grind at it. So really, you want to understand your goals and your timeline. Other thing is, what is my plan to get there? Right. There's different things that are going to cause you're going to run out of something, in real estate investing. You may run out of money. You may run out of time. You may run out of credit, all these kind of things you may run out of. at some point in your journey, right? But recognizing those things and developing a plan to get around them, recognizing a plan to get over them, that's going to be critical. Are you going to get into private money? You can start using hard money lenders. All of that kind of stuff is very important, right? Because, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, they got limits on what they'll actually loan you. And if you're buying deals at 20% down, you're buying $100,000 houses at $20K a pop, that money goes really fast. And if you're a buy and hold investor, it takes a while to recoup that. So first thing that I see people struggle with is having a lack of clarity. Next thing though, and this trips a lot of folks up, myself included at sometimes, is a lack of focus. So first thing is lack of clarity. Second thing is lack of focus. And what in our current predicament as a society right now, we're the Instagram society, we're the Netflix society. We'll binge watch on a whole weekend, right? And I think not having focus, that will result in us not reading enough, not networking enough, not being active enough, and we have a lack of focus, right? So one of the big pieces for me that has been integral in my journey so far is education, right? Reading. I got to be reading on. Sometimes I'm reading on Friday night. It might be Sunday afternoon, Tuesday, evening, or Thursday morning, right? But I have specific goals of how much reading I need to do in a given day, right? You have to identify the areas you're weak in that you don't understand, and spend time, attacking those things and learning more about them, right? But because we don't have enough focus, we're easily distracted, and everybody, here's the thing I've learned, right? Everybody has 1,440 minutes in a given day, right? So we all have the same amount of time. It is the even playing field, right? So everybody has 1,440 to work with, right? So what you do with those 1,440 is going to have a direct impact on your success as a real estate investor. So I see a lot of folks though, they're like, yeah, my time management is terrible. I can't read, listen, not that you can't read, but I struggle to read books, right? But if you struggle to read books, man, get an Audible account, right? If you struggle with that, there's videos out there. There's so much information. We are in the information age, but because we have a lack of focus, we're not taking advantage of that, right? We're not taking advantage of reaching out to folks to network and mentor and to connect. And here's what I've learned, right? The more I know about real estate, the more that I do deals, right? More deals come, and more people want to do deals, right? So networking is critical, but if you don't have the focus to reach out to people, you don't have the focus to talk and make those contacts, it can be kind of difficult. Next thing though, lack of focus on, so I mentioned earlier, right? Not having, from the clarity section, not having goals in the timeline. But the other piece with lack of focus is not measuring yourself. So if you set a goal, right, you're like, hey, I'm going to read an hour a day on real estate investing, or I'm going to, write, I'm going to offer on 5 properties a week. I'm going to call 5 sellers. I'm going to visit. I'm going to do those kind of things. You got to measure what you're doing, right? Because you things that get measured, the action gets taken on them, right? And you start to look, you get to Thursday and Friday and like, I haven't met my goal this week. If you're measuring it, you're tracking it, you're tracking yourself to your plan, right? You will recenter and recalibrate to it. So I think it's very important to measure what you do, right? So I have metrics in my business. We call them KPIs, key performance indicators. Have I sent out this much marketing material? Have I made this many deals? Have I analyzed this many properties? And really it just comes back to clarity, and it comes back to focus. The other thing on the focus side though, and I was just talking to somebody earlier, and I run into a lot of people, especially younger folks who are, below the age of 30, is comparison to other people, right? So lack of focus. When we compare ourselves to other people, a quote I really like, it says that comparison is a thief of joy, right? So if we are comparing ourselves to other people, it can be it can be very discouraging, right? Because you're looking and you're like, they're at that point in their journey. They've already got, they're 30 years old and they're already, financially free. I see pictures of them on Instagram and they're on vacation, all that kind of stuff, right? And I'm still working on my first deal, right? But the thing is, comparison to other people will cause you to lose focus and cause you to stop taking action. It'll cause you to stop doing the stuff that you need to do to help you to get started, to help you to grow your business, right? So a lot of times I run into folks and that whole comparison struggle really gets them and really trips them up, right? So the other piece though is number 3 is a lack of knowledge, So folks don't necessarily know their market, right? They're like, hey, I just want to buy a house. They don't know what that house can rent for. They don't know if it'll pass the 1% rule, the 2% rule. They don't know what, their cash on cash return is going to be. They don't know, what houses typically sell for in their given market. So lack of knowledge can be very problematic. Sometimes folks don't know how to do deal analysis, right? And they're like, man, I'm clueless, right? But the thing that I love nowadays, I mean, you can Bigger Pockets has deal calculators that you can look up. If you're doing a bird deal, they got a calculator. You're doing a fix and flip, they got a calculator. Buy and hold, they got they got calculators for everything. So not knowing how to do deal analysis really does trip people up, because they're like, hey, real estate is about the numbers. It's about people, but it's also about the numbers. And you make your money when you buy. So if you don't know if you got a good deal or not, and you go and you just buy something because it's a property, you can really get yourself into trouble, right? And I've seen folks who buy deals that are not deals, and that can be very detrimental. The other piece, is negotiation. Not knowing how to solve people's problems, because sometimes opportunities come up, and when we don't have the skills and the tools to solve problems, we don't have the skills and the tools to create deals, we lose out on them. And, so negotiation tends to be a critical skill. The other thing, lack of knowledge on creative finance. As I mentioned earlier, at some point, you're probably going to run out of money, unless you start, you get business lines of credit, or you link up with private money. You've got sources of income that can help you in your business. You got to learn how to do creative financing, because I remember I talked about that 20% down. That ends up being a lot of money, right? So until you can figure out how to get into deals with 5% down, even no money down types of deals, when the money starts to run out and the cash flow is not coming in as fast enough to replenish it, creative financing becomes very important. So one thing I've done, in my journey, is I've really learned a ton about. Really been just digging into lease options, subject to types of deals. I've done one lease option. I've got another one putting together right now, another sub two looking at, later in this year. But it allows me to walk into deals with a lot less money coming out of my pocket. So when you're starting out, right, you're going to the bank, you're all that kind of stuff. But then after a while, the bank doesn't want to give you money because you've exceeded the number of deals that they will allow. So creative financing, is important. And I tell people a lot of times, I'm like, hey, look, when the only tool that you got in your toolbox is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? But if you understand how to do creative finance, you can create deals, right? You can work with sellers and create win-wins, and things like that, right? So creative financing is another piece, but not having the knowledge on them and not taking the effort and action to pursue those things can really trip you up. The other piece of it is contractors. So lack of knowledge on how to deal with contractors. Some contractors are a necessary part of the business if you're doing fix and flips, or if you're doing bird deals, or even if you're just trying to get something fixed around your rental. Dealing with contractors can be a nightmare sometimes, right? Because there's this uncertainty of, hey, is this person going to try to steal my money? Are they going to do a good job? Sometimes you may be thinking that, hey, they got their name on the side of a truck. They got decals, they got business cards or whatever. They got a website, and they're going to be fantastic. And then you come to find out they're not, and it can be such a headache. But learning how to deal with contractors, how to find good ones, how to set up how to set up the contracts you need, and things like that, right? How to pursue them if they don't perform, all of that kind of stuff is I've seen that really become problematic for folks getting started out in real estate. Other piece though is dealing with tenants, and or property managers. So if you're self-managing, how do you deal with tenants? How do you set things up so that how do you do a lease, right? How do you know what the tenant landlord laws are in your area? How do you do an eviction? How do you make sure that the tenant's not trying to take advantage of you? All those kind of things are critical, but not having knowledge of how to do those can be a major headache, right? So there's tons of resources, even on a local level, the national level, through books, through mentors. There's lots of resources to figure that out. But the other piece of it is dealing with property managers, right? How do you recognize you got a good one, or whether or not they just want to get the check every month? So you actually, believe it or not, you have to manage your property manager. They will, they'll, some are good, some are not very good. So if you just fire and forget. You say, hey, I got a property manager. They're going to take care of it. You could easily find that your property is torn up after a year, sometimes even less. So if they're not doing inspections, they're not, doing the things they need to do, all right, you can have a nightmare on your hands. So I've seen just overall, though, a lack of knowledge on how real estate investing works and the different pieces of it. There's a lot of moving parts as a real estate investor, but knowledge is critical. Knowledge is key. Other thing, though, is a lack of action. Folks that get started in real estate, they see a video, they get super excited. I mean, it seems like now everybody is a real estate investor, and that might be because they had a house and they moved on to another one and they left the previous one as a rental, but one of the things that folks struggle with is just a lack of action. And that might be analysis paralysis, just looking over so much information, right? I talked about lack of knowledge, but sometimes you get so much knowledge before you pull the trigger on your first deal. Folks can get into analysis paralysis, wondering, hey, is the market going to crash next year? I shouldn't do anything, or I can't get a 1%, I can't pass the 1% rule in my market, or my lender wants this. They want me to pay points for this, or I can't, I got to pay a little bit extra on the asking price to get this deal, right? So you can get into analysis paralysis, and it can be paralyzing. You won't take any action, So I think it's important. And sometimes folks are looking for that home run on every single deal, especially the first one. I was very fortunate to hit a home run on my first deal where I bought a quadplex, and it's still the best performer in my portfolio. But I realized real quick, there's not that many of those out there, especially for the price point that I got it. So, instead of trying to hit a home run, sometimes I got to try to go for a single or a double, but analysis paralysis can be detrimental. On the other side of it is procrastination, right? Just being at that place of, because we don't know what to do, we don't do anything, and I believe that that's one of the worst recipes, right? Where you're like, yeah. And, we're getting towards the end of the year. Folks are like, hey, when January gets here, I'm going to be studying. I'm going to RIA meetups. I'm going to be on Zoom calls. I'm going to be at this think tank mastermind. I'm going to be a part of all of this stuff. And I'll get it, first of the year. What happens is the first year comes, you're excited for a month. And then come February, people aren't doing anything, right? So lack of action is a detriment. And I see it all the time where, I've had folks reach out to me, have a quick phone call, and I've got to the place now. I'm like, hey, look, I don't have that much time, but I'm more than willing to have a conversation with you. And usually what I do is I'll say, hey, look, here's this list of books, right? Here's 5 books. I want you in 30 days to read at least one and have started on number 2. And when we meet up again, let's talk, right? And you tell me what you got out of the book. You share with me your questions, right? I don't want to just get together and the person says, hey, just show me about real estate investing, right? Because they're not adding any value, and they're like, hey, just spoon feed it all to me. But you gotta put in the work, right? There is no substitute for the work. So lack of action is a big, one of the ones that really get people. This next one I'm gonna talk about, though, number 5, and I'm gonna give you a bonus on the tail end of it, is a lack of grit. A lack of grit, right? And grit is it's just pure willpower. It's pure willpower, and there's nothing easy about this. And if this was so easy, everybody would be doing it. Everybody would be a millionaire by now, right? But just having a lack of grit really does trip people up. And I think one of the things that I run into is that people sometimes new investors have a sprint mentality instead of a marathon mentality, right? And I know I had one when I started. I was like, hey, I'm going to buy 6 deals a year. Not to say those things are impossible, but it just wasn't my reality when I started, right? You run into different barriers, right? But having a sprint mentality instead of a marathon mentality can really get you, right? Because if you're not getting the results that you want fast enough, a lot of times people will say, oh, this is not for me. But grit says that no matter what I face, I'm going to get there, right? No matter how many obstacles, I'm going to get there. If I got, above what I planned for, expenses or repairs, or I got evictions and vacancies, right? A lot of people they're like, this isn't for me. I'm not cut out for this. But you look at why that happened. Why did it go wrong, right? If you had to evict a tenant, did you compromise on your screening? Did you screen at all? Right. So those things are just data that you react to and you learn from and you grow from. Right. So but a marathon mentality is like, hey, no matter what, I'm going to keep at this until I get there, until I hit my FI number, until I get the number of properties under my belt that I'm after, right? Those things are important, right? But you can't bring a sprint mentality as a real estate investor unless you're going to have this, like Grant Cardone says, 10X rule, right? If you're going to 10X it and you're going to work like crazy to get any and every, to get everything you need to get all of these deals that you need, that you can maybe get there sprinting that way. But the amount of energy and effort that it takes are 10 times what it does in a marathon. So, and a lot of times people get burnt out and they're like, man, I don't want any parts of this. And then trust me, I'm telling y'all this, I love working with burnout landlords because, I buy deals from burnout landlords, but I hate to see them. When I see a new investor come along and ask me to help them, I'm like, hey, this is not a sprint. It's not a sprint. You're watching HGTV. It's lying to you, right? You're thinking that you're going to get there tomorrow, right? It's that is not the norm, right? I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but that's not the norm. The other thing is that people are easily discouraged by failure. Easily discouraged by failure. So you buy one deal doesn't work out well, you lose a little bit of money, and I'm done. This is not for me, right? The problem with that is that that's just a roadblock, and the thing about roadblocks is that they make us stronger. I was talking to somebody and I said, hey, guess what? I got some news for you. You're facing this mountain, right? And you're working to get around it, you're working to get over it, you're working to get through it. Guess what's on the other side of the mountain? Another mountain. And the thing is, right, I've just learned, having grit says that no matter how many mountains are in front of me, I'm going to just keep plodding. I'm going to keep pressing. I'm going to keep going. This morning, I was running. I've been running a lot, since the pandemic hit, probably since early summer. And, a friend of mine, he had run 13.1 miles. He ran a half marathon. I was like, man, that's a lot. And my previous was like 7.5. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try, right? And the thing was, in the run, I just kept 1 foot in front of the other, 1 foot in front of the other. And no matter how tired I got, just keep going, just keep going. And the thing with your business, and I tell people when they're starting out, just keep going. Do not stop, do not quit, right? But sometimes people are easily discouraged by failure. So when they run into that first roadblock, they give up, or the second one, they give up, right? So, and I've been there before. I mean, I remember my quad plex where I spent probably $2,000 in sewer repairs, and I was like, man, I might have to sell this house, but I finally figured out, hey, I got to get a camera company in here, and they figured out where the problem was, fixed the problem goes away, right? And that's the wonderful thing about houses is like these things, they're not cursed, right? They're bricks and sticks, and they got wires in them, and they got HVAC lines, but they can be solved, right? Where these things are not. We're not SpaceX trying to send, rockets up in outer space, right? These are houses. So don't be easily discouraged by failure. Other thing, last but not least, is that hard work beats talent every day of the week. Every day of the week. And that's what grit is, right? People come and they don't have grit. Grit is just like, hey, I'm going to go. And I'm going to go and I'm going to go until I get there. Having that level of willpower and determination that no matter what, I'm going to get there and nobody else can stop me. So, but a lot of times folks don't have that. They want is like, hey, just show me how to do all of this. Do you have can you just walk me through the deal? Can you just, look over my deal and tell me, what I should do? Right. It's granted, you should have somebody look over your deal, but you got to do the deal, right? You got to get out there. You got to have the experience. You got to, learn it for yourself, right? At some point, you got to, it's like you got to walk. But hard work beats talent every day of the week. You look at a newborn, right? You look at a baby, and they fall, they struggle, but they keep getting up. I don't see. We all know how to walk today, so you have in your DNA the inherent grit that you needed to learn how to walk. You've got the same inherent grit that it takes to be successful as an investor. Bonus for you guys. I know I said 5. Bonus is definitely lack of network. So in your network, you should have mentors. You should have agents. You should have property managers. You should have a mortgage broker. You should have, just folks, right? You need to add to your network, right? People who are above you, where you're trying to go. who've already walked the walk, but it's good to have a network, and folks try to go it alone. And I've seen people go it alone. It just takes a lot longer to get there. So a network is also important, but sometimes folks are like, hey, I don't know who to call. I'm a super introvert, right? But we live in a day and age where you can just hop on the phone. You can hop on a Zoom call. You can hop, on, Facebook Live, Instagram Live, whatever, and connect with people. There's think tanks, there's masterminds, there's local meetup groups, right? These things help you get there faster. Right. And that's one thing I do with folks. Right. I try to, just share my failures and my journey so that they can benefit from it. So but again, that's the things that I see tend to trip people up in their journey. So if you find yourself stuck in one of these areas, feel free to reach out to me, hit me up. And if you want to get unstuck, definitely hit me up. I know I've been there, stuck in many ways, many times. And, but you keep going. So lack of clarity, lack of focus, lack of knowledge, lack of action, and lack of grit. And then for bonus, lack of network. So hope you're getting all of those things: clarity, focus, knowledge, action, grit, and a network. Because if you get them right and you keep on grinding, you will be successful. Hey, this has been Marseille, the property pastor, with another video for you on your journey through real estate investing. Hope it's been a blessing to you. You guys have been a blessing to me. Thanks for tuning in today. And I can't wait to check in with you again soon. Happy Thanksgiving. Love you guys. Take care.